Hey, so today I wanted to teach you a cool little party trick called the QDR push-up or the QDR static hold. And basically it's just a single arm balance with the bent arm on our side. And so when I teach this skill, I like to kind of break it down and bring it back to the elbow placement before we even start to talk about balance and how to balance and what takes place there. Just because when your hand's in the right place, or when your elbow's in the right place, balance is going to work so much better. And if your elbow placement is too far to the front, which is pretty common when most people are learning this, it makes the balance really precarious. And you can do it, and it works, but it's just a lot harder, right? And so since it's a skill, we want to learn the easiest, most efficient way so that we can do it, in theory, effortlessly eventually. So with that introduction, here's how I like to teach this skill. I like to start in a squat, and like I mentioned, we don't want our elbows in front. We want to actually put our elbow on the side. And so where my elbow is going to go is actually right around the outside of my hip. So I'm going to place my hands on the ground out in front of my body in the squat, and then what I'm going to do here is rotate my knee to the inside, and so you can see here now that my hip is in line with this elbow. So in this position, I'm just going to shift my weight forward, touch my hip to my elbow, and then rotate right back out. So I'm looking to move as directly as possible, twist straight to that elbow, and right back up. And we'll do that on both sides, coming in to touch that elbow. And so what I'm looking for is not an exact elbow placement, right? It does need to be on the outside, on the lateral portion of our body, but how high, whether it's more on the hip or actually even on the torso, is going to depend on how long your arms are, how long your legs are, how long your torso is. So as long as we're in that general vicinity on the outside of the hip, then we can start looking for that balance and that heavy weighted feel. And so what I want to feel as I rotate and shift onto that elbow is my weight feeling heavy and that forearm being vertical. So if you look at my forearm in this position, it's going to be nice and vertical. If it's back at this angle, that's going to be really tough to balance. So I want that nice and straight up and down. Feel the weight heavy on it. Boom, and come right back. Same thing on that other side. I shift in, I find that hip position. I feel that weight sit heavy. And come right back up. So we're looking for that knee inside. Bring the hip to the elbow, and then I gently shift forward slowly until I feel that weight in the hip settle on that forearm. And so when that forearm is vertical, it's going to be nice and strong, it's going to be nice and stable. When it gets off to the side at any angle, that hand is going to have to work way, way, way harder, and that's going to be inefficient. So we want that nice vertical forearm. So once you're able to get this accurately after maybe several weeks of practice, depending on your flexibility, that may be a limiting factor for you. But once you're able to at least imagine that you've got that nailed down, the next thing to do is going to be to start extending the legs out, which is going to amplify the need for balance because we're going to be more spread out. If the balance is off, those legs going out to the sides are going to pull us out of balance, and if we're centered, when the legs go out, we'll just feel stable. So here's what that looks like as a small progression. So hands on the ground, shift, and then I reach with that leg and sweep back to my start position. Same thing on the other side, twist in, reach with that leg towards the outside, and right back to my start position. So it's a big arcing sweep of the legs that allows this forearm to remain the center point of that radius, of that big arc that we're making. And so what I want to think about with this guy is feel that weight first, and then if you watch my foot, it's going to trace the ground low. As I come around. So if I do it a little less coordinated, a little more poorly, that high foot like that is not what we want. We want that foot nice and low. Keeping him close to the ground. As this feels balanced, really the next thing to do is to just take this inside foot off the ground. So if I come here, we'll go left side first. As I sweep around, if I think I'm balanced, then this foot can come off the ground. Bring it back to the ground, sweep. Feel balance. And coming back to the center. So I call this a QDR push-up basic, or a basic QDR push-up. And really it's about being smooth. So I mentioned the efficiency. I call it a push-up, but it shouldn't make you tired in terms of if you were just doing tons of push-ups. It will create some fatigue, but it should not feel like you're really coming down and pushing yourself back up each time. So to go back through each step of this guy, elbow is looking for that outside of the hip, so the hands come down, knee comes inside, touch that elbow, come back up. Touch that elbow, come back up. As that movement starts to become natural, we start to search for balance. So we turn, we touch, and we shift that weight forward to feel that weight load in. On that forearm. Once you start to feel that weight load in correctly and nice and balanced, we move that foot and we make sure to keep the other foot on the ground. So we have our hands for balance and this foot on the ground. And then finally, once that starts to be under control, we sweep, sweep, sweep. And then we push back up. So we're not looking for the actual QDR static hold on one arm today. We're looking for accurate elbow placement as a priority. So that first step of just getting here and taking the time to be accurate with that position, and then maybe if that's feeling good, getting to where we're really leaning out over it, and then only getting to this business once we can sit here in that stable position for at least 30 seconds for 3 to 5 sets without feeling like you're shaking around, without feeling like your position is different from set to set. So we want to have 3 to 5 consistent sets of 30 seconds in this simple position before this foot starts to move. Next week we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about what happens once both feet come up and a different entry that's going to be more consistent with the standard static hold that's going to be making you a hit at all the parties.